Yo, what's good YouTube? ZAMCRO here, aka Scoop, back with the International Draft Masters Season 4, and we have our week number 3 match. And we're facing off against the Arizona Dactyls, coached by Volume. And he's got a pretty scary squad. He's got the Mega Low Pony, Zygarde 50%, Jirachi, Suicune, Togekiss, Tyranitar, Rotom Mow, Viola, Marowak, Venomoth, Piloswine, and the Sandslash. And his Z-move users are Zygarde and Venomoth, so pretty scary Z-move users there. He's got the Serene Grace core with Jirachi and Togekiss, which could be very annoying. Pursuit trapping with Tyranitar to open up holes for Mega Lopunny is a pretty common strategy with the pair. The combination of Mega Lopunny and Zygarde 50% really weaken Fairy and Steel types, things like that, ground types, and all kinds of just bulky water types, potentially bulky psychic types and things like that. And it really opens up holes for each other. Jirachi can also aid in that alongside Dillo and Marowak and the Venomoth, which could potentially set up and be a huge nuisance for other squads. We have Mega Mawile, Garchomp, Zapdos, Reuniclus, Crobat, Serena, Volcanion, Cofagrigus, Mamoswine, and the Hitmonlee, where our Z-move users are Garchomp and Hitmonlee. And we've decided to bring our Garchomp, Zapdos, Reuniclus, Serena, Mamoswine, and the Hitmonlee for this matchup. For weeks 1 and 2, we've actually brought Trick Room with Cofagrigus and Reuniclus, and this week we're bringing Reuniclus again, but we're not bringing a Trick Room variant. We're bringing a different way to control speed with Choice Scarfs, and using Reuniclus as a pivot into Mega Lopunny, as Mega Lopunny can be a huge issue. We'd like to have a reliable switch in. We are not 2-hit KO'd by return after Stealth Rocks with max HP and max defense, and able to one-shot Mega Lopunny with Psyshock after Stealth Rocks with our investment. That being said, the general thought process behind the squad that we've built is we've got Choice Scarf Mamoswine and Choice Scarf Hitmonlee, and the idea is to use our offense and defense to open up holes for those two Pokemon, particularly Hitmonlee, as in the late game, if things like Alolan Marowak and Togekiss are beat down, then my opponent has no switch in to close combat, and he has a couple mons that take super effective damage, which is just fantastic. Also have the Z move on Garchomp, the Rocky MZ, so that I can get off a Continental Crush versus the Togekiss. We are Swords Dance, Earthquake, Stone Edge, and Stealth Rock. Stealth Rock, to beat down things like Alolan Marowak, Venomoth, Togekiss, and to get chip on things like Suicune and Tyranitar, which could be crucial for 2-hit KOs. So we are speed creeping a max speed Jirachi, I believe, with our Garchomp, and with Zapdos we are speed creeping max speed Tyranitar, so that we can always outpace that. We are a sub-toxic discharge variant with Roost, so that we can potentially 1v1 things like Zygarde, Piloswine, Suicune, Togekiss, Tyranitar, things like that, and even the Rotom Mow, which could be nice. Next up we have a defensive Reuniclus, which I talked about earlier. Takes hits from Mega Lopunny really well. Takes hits from Zygarde decently well. Physically offensive Jirachi pretty well also. Just a nuisance for my opponent, as his best switch in is the Tyranitar, which takes 4 times effective damage from Focus Blast, which has really, really high base power, coming off Reuniclus's really high base special attack. So that could be problematic for my opponent. Plus, the rest of my squad deals really, really well with Tyranitar, naturally, Garchomp, Mamoswine, Hitmonlee, and even Serena. So, speaking of Serena, that's our next Pokemon. Our switch into Suicune here, we are mostly specially defensive, but we do have a little bit of defense investment with U-Turn, Power Whip, Hidden Power Ice, and Synthesis. Basically can switch into Suicune and Zygarde pretty much all day. Scare them out with the power whip, or if my opponent doesn't expect the hidden power ice, I could potentially catch my opponent with that. Versus his Zygarde, which could be nice and would do a lot more than Power Whip would. Our last move, Synthesis, is for longevity. We can switch in on Suicune and Zygarde repetitively, Synthesis up, and get our health back so that we can continue to do that throughout the match, as our opponent could potentially be forcing a lot of switches with the bulk that he has on his squad. So, speaking of the bulk on his squad, Suicune switches in really well to our next Pokemon, Mamoswine. So having Serena really complements that, as Choice Scarf Mamoswine can't really break Suicune. With Icicle Crash, Earthquake, Ice Shard, and I think our last move is Superpower, so that we can catch the Mega Lopunny or potentially the Piloswine from a decent amount of HP and knock out the both of them. And if Tyranitar is in a position to where it's potentially a Sugar Berry variant, then we can just blow it back with the Superpower as well. Or if he's potentially a Chople Berry variant, and Hitmonlee is our win condition, that we can go ahead and pop his Chople Berry so that he doesn't have that later on when Hitmonlee could be in a position to win. Speaking of Hitmonlee, we have a Limber Choice Scarf variant with Close Combat, Stone Edge, Knockoff, and the Reversal. So Reversal is in the case that my opponent doesn't have Quick Attack, or he's not in a position to click Fake Out or Quick Attack. And Zygarde's gone, or doesn't have Extreme Speed, say he's a Coil, Dragonette Sub, 1000 Arrows variant or something like that, then Hitmonlee, once I get, really low HP, my move of choice would be Reversal, actually, instead of Close Combat, depending on my HP investment, because the lower my HP status is percentage, the more damage output Reversal does. So that's really nice. I have Knockoff because it's really nice versus the Jirachi, the Alola Marowak, and to just get rid of Togekiss's item. And we have Stone Edge specifically for the Togekiss, and I guess it hits the Venomoth as well. But I don't know, as big as a threat that Venomoth could be, I don't really expect it in this matchup. With all that being said, though, we can go ahead and hop into the replay. I did not actually get to catch this one live. We did this one early morning, and I wasn't able to catch it live because I had some things going on. But we do have the replay here, so let's go ahead and hop into it and see what actually happened. Alright, so here we are with the replay. My opponent chooses to bring the Mega Lopunny, Tyranitar, Piloswine, Suicune, the Alola Marowak, and the Togekiss. So, bringing the team that we just went over in the team building section, I feel fairly confident. It looks like I can weaken, where I have checks to things like Alola Marowak and Togekiss that really open up Hitmonlee, and potentially Mamoswine if I can beat down the Suicune. Both Pokemon looking really, really powerful, and both me in really solid win conditions with their Choice Scarf. So that's going to be the main goal, to keep that intact. I think he only has one knockoff user in the Alola Marowak, so it shouldn't be too difficult to keep our items. But at the same time, I also want to use Garchomp to try to break his team, getting a Swords Dance up in the face of something like Alola Marowak, or a Fairy type coverage less Togekiss, or Tyranitar without Ice Beam, which I assume that Tyranitar does have Ice Beam, to avoid being set up on, things like that. Anyways, my opponent has a couple different leads here. I'm going to expect the Piloswine. I think it's his best lead. So I'm going to lead off with my Zapdos, and what I'm going to do is throw off a Toxic, expecting my opponent to get Stealth Rock Sub, or click Icicle Crash. I could have clicked Sub here, but I 100% expected my opponent to get Stealth Rock Sub. I did not expect my opponent to go for Toxic. Had I went for Sub there, I would have been in a fantastic position, as I would have been able to click Toxic on the following turn, and then I would have been able to click Sub and Roost and play mind games with the Piloswine, eventually put myself in a solid position, as he would have dropped. Anyways, I hard switch in my Hitmonlee and click Knockoff, predicting my opponent to switch out. He does go out to the Suicune and just click Scald as I bring in my Serena. Predicting my opponent to switch out, I went for the U-turn, and I go hard into my Zapdos as I felt it was my least valuable and most expendable Pokemon at that point, forcing my opponent out here. And I'm not sure what kind of Alolan Marowak this is, so I'm just going to click Toxic here, as my opponent actually goes for the Will-O-Wisp. So now I could go into my Garchomp, but he has revealed Will-O-Wisp, so I'm not sure what he's going to go for here. He could go for Will-O-Wisp again. So I go for Sub, as my opponent just clicks Flare Blitz and breaks my sub. I click Roost, and he actually goes for Flare Blitz, and it's able to knock me out. But now I'm going to be able to bring in my Garchomp, and I can get my Stealth Rocks up, putting a little bit of pressure onto my opponent now. I could also click Earthquake here, but in fear of him going straight into his Togekiss, I felt my best play was to just go ahead and get my Stealth Rocks up. And my opponent does go into the Piloswine, forcing my hand out into my Mamoswine here. So I felt like taking damage on Mamoswine wouldn't be the end of the world, and I felt like I had answers to Suicune, so I could just click Icicle Crash here, as the worst case scenario would have been him going into Togekiss and not actually going into Suicune. But yeah, I do have Serena, so Suicune is not too big of an issue. I go into it here as he goes for the rest. He hard switches out into Piloswine on my Power Whip, and that thing is going to drop. So Serena actually picking up a knockout. I'm going to hard switch into my Mamoswine, as my opponent actually clicks Defog here, getting rid of my Stealth Rocks, and predicting my opponent to switch out into Suicune here, not wanting to take an Icicle Crash. I'm going to hard switch out into my Serena, and I do get that call right, and I am going to predict my opponent to go out into the Alolan Marowak here, and I double out into my Garchomp and to get my rocks up. But my opponent actually goes out into Togekiss, goes for the Air Slash as I get rocks up, and doesn't do that much damage. So I use this as an opportunity to set up a Swords Dance and then get my rocks up once again, as I can survive an Air Slash from this range, and go for my Z move, which is exactly what I needed to get rid of this Togekiss and open up a hole for Hitmonlee. Now Hitmonlee is in a prime position, and my opponent brings in the Mega Lopunny to revenge kill me, so that's fantastic for me as well, as I can just go hard out into my Reuniclus here, as my opponent goes hard out into his Tyranitar. I'm going to read that and go for the Focus Blast, and almost pick up the knockout on the Tyranitar there, living on 3%, so that was fantastic to see, as my opponent goes for the Crunch there and knocks me out. And I'm going to go out into my Mamoswine. I don't want to reveal that I am Choice Scarf on my Hitmonlee yet, and I don't mind to reveal it on Mamoswine, because he can't go into his Lopunny or Alolan Marowak at that range, or at that point. And I have answers to Suicune, like I mentioned. I do have the Serena. He does roll a Toxic off of Rest Talk here, and able to poison my Serena, but not going to be too big of an issue. And I go for the Power Whip here, and again, I do miss, but not too big of an issue, as the only difference would have been my opponent would have died to Recoil plus Poison plus the Power Whip damage there. It would have did at least 8%. But yeah, so I am forced into my Mamoswine here since he does live, and this allows him to come in with his Suicune once again, but I can just go right back out to my Serena, and as long as my opponent doesn't go hard into Mega Lopunny, I should be fine. And he does not. He gets a Rest Talk there and goes for the Toxic, and I go for the Power Whip, as he is able to survive and rest is up. But Power Whip does reveal to be a 2-hit KO, and he can't afford to allow Mega Lopunny to come in and take a Power Whip, because it will be in range of Mamoswine's Ice Shard at that point. So my opponent is actually going to allow Suicune to go down here. I am faster than a max speed non-Scarf Tyranitar, so I am also faster than his Suicune by his investment. And he is able to revenge kill me with his Mega Lopunny, but I am able to bring in my Hitmonlee here and just click the Close Combat and pick up the last knockout of the match, and pick up a nice 2-0 victory here in the iDM. Coming off that week 1 loss we had, we're actually doing pretty well with 2 big victories back to back. I feel like we should be 3-0 at this point, but it is what it is. That's going to be good game 2 volume and the Arizona Dactyls. and I think we moved to 2-1 with a +5 differential, and we face off against the New Orleans Saints next week. So again, good game, 2 volume, and good luck for the rest of the season, my man. And next up, we're going to be facing off against the New Orleans Saints. Hopefully we can catch that one live. I'm not sure yet. Depends on mine and Nova's work schedules and when we're actually going to be able to fit in the game and things like that. But yeah, that's going to be it. So let me know what you guys thought about the prep and the plays on both sides of the field. Leave a like, comment, and subscribe, all the good stuff. And I'll see you guys next time. Thank you for watching.